Hey guys, welcome back. This is Lukey, coach of your Olivine City Beacons, and here we go. We're going to talk about the other league that just started up in the Drafters Paradise Draft League, and that's Gen 8 UU, run by Peter Greedent. So if you are not familiar with the league setup, it's a combination of tiers and point drafting. You had to pick one Pokemon from each of the 5 tiers. You can see where I've covered them off myself here. And then you had 5 free picks with a combination of 500 points. And that's where sort of the creativity came into play. Now, there were lots of high value lower tier Pokemon, but I decided that with 360 points at the 500, that I could get 3 tier 2 Pokemon that would really strengthen my team. And I'm going to break them down here. It's not going to be as long as the last video, hopefully, but I just want to run through my team and then also talk about the P-Town Pests and their hilarious team. So just taking a look at my squad, I'm really excited about what some of these guys can do. Unlike my super low tier draft, I decided that strategy here was I'm going to pick a lot of my favorites and just try and make them work together and try and build a sick team that is going to be a lot of fun to use. So I had the first overall pick, and I actually didn't even notice after watching Pokebaldi's video, and the guy who is definitely the top threat in the league this year. Thank God we're not in the same division. That Landorus Incarnate was available as a tier 2 Pokemon. Because I wanted Alakazam, and Alakazam's a Pokemon that I've used. I used in my very first draft league. It was the absolute linchpin of my team. This thing is just such a threat. That 120 base speed, the move pool, it comes in, it is going to hurt things. It is going to do its job almost all the time, unless you terribly misplay it. And really, Magic Card's the only ability it needs, and the reason for that is, with a Focus Sash, you can always ensure that Zam is getting in one time to absolutely ruin somebody's day. It can take a hit and just start doing damage. So I wanted to sort of build the team around that, and also just getting something that was really quick in round 1 was really key for me. So next was a Pokemon that I haven't used yet but have really wanted to, and that's Crocodile. Crocodile is such a glue Pokemon. It has a decent speed tier in UU. It's not great, but it's not horrible either. It's gonna as a pivot, it's gonna outspeed a lot of walls. You slap a choice scarf on it, and all of a sudden the really fast Pokemon in the tier are needing to decide if they need to run Scarf, because it can outrun pretty much anything, and there aren't a ton of Scarfers, I think, that are going to come over it. It's got that great 117 base attack, it's got Intimidate, it's got Moxie, so it can come in and pivot, it can set rocks. It's got that stab knockoff on 117 attack, hurts so many things, and Earthquake coming off that attack as well is really nice. It's not terrific in terms of special bulk, but it can run Assault Vest if you're feeling really spicy. With Moxie, it's certainly something that can clean up late game. And I really wanted to try it out. I also wanted a Ghost Resist, and I wanted a really strong knockoff that was going to hurt things. So my third pick, I decided to get my tier 5 out of the way, and I'm not sure if anybody was jonesing to get Articuno, but I was. And the reason is, if you've had a gander through the underused viability rankings on Smogon, and followed any sort of the trends for the UU tier. Articuno is a bit of a riser, and it's no longer just a niche pick. The reason for that is great bulk. As I mentioned in my last video, it's obviously way more bulky and super low tier. It's got, the useful support moves, but it is an absolute killer of bulky waters and bulky grounds. And this thing can deter a lot of Pokemon from coming. In particular, I'm not sure if anybody drafted Hippowdon, but a lot of the water types are going to absolutely hate this thing. And obviously Heal Bell and Defog, this thing can sit around for a long time, and it only needs Freeze Dry to be a threat. So next I started to focus a bit on some of my other tier 2s because I didn't want to get them sniped by other players. So next I picked up Melodic, and Melodic is just a super annoying Pokemon to have to play against. With Marvel Scale, it is an absolute beast. It doesn't require any defensive investment, and that allows you to go a lot more into special attack or special defense. And if you are, facing a lot of Intimidate users, or you think that your opponent's going to bring sticky webs, competitive is a great move. I know it's mostly used in doubles for Melodic, but it's the kind of move that you bring and all of a sudden, or the ability you bring and all of a sudden your opponent is thinking that Melodic's going to be fairly passive, and now all of a sudden it's this huge threat, because 100 base special attack is good, but then suddenly boosted by 2 stages, and it's going to hurt. And so, depending on the kind of set you want to run and how you want to build your team, it can be really useful that way. It's got Flip Turn now for momentum. It's got Recover, so that, it can run Flame Orb and Marvel Scale and be super bulky defensively. Scald, Spread Burns, Ice Beam for coverage, Toxic. It's got enough tools in its toolbox to really do what it wants to do and cause problems. Now, right after that, I wanted to take another 120 point Mon, and that's Togekiss. And Togekiss has been, I was in another league recently, the Lumiose Draft League. I made the semifinals, barely lost to the eventual champion. It was a really good match. And all the way through the run, I had a pretty mediocre team. I'm not great at Nat Dex. And Togekiss was a mid-season pickup that just changed the whole complexion of my team. And the reason is it has just a disgusting move pool. And, it can do some pretty annoying things. It's not going to be your opponent's favorite Pokemon to go up against. Serene Grace, Thunder Wave, Air Slash is an absolute pain. But great bulk, great utility move pool. It is speed control. It is hazard control. It is status control. You kind of have to pick and choose what you're going to do, but it's your ground immunity. It's this team's primary form of taking on dragon types. Not that there's many running around the tier. And it's a Pokemon that even with just a couple moves is going to win games and cause a lot of problems, and especially allow some of my faster threats to come in and do their thing. Next up, I took Heliolisk. Heliolisk, I believe, is one of my tier 3s. So Heliolisk is another Pokemon that I have wanted to use for a while. It is so fun to use. I remember using it in-game in the original X and Y. This thing, it's a special attacker. It knows what it wants to do, and it's going to do it. It's a water immunity, which is great, even at the risk of a fire type weakness, which this team doesn't love, but has some ways around it. Another reason for drafting Heliolisk, obviously that big special attack, Volt Switch, and I believe it also gets U-turn, so it can guarantee a pivot, but it has Volt Switch to do more damage. It has Surf. It's got that really strong special attack. It hits what it needs to hit, and it deters grounds from switching in. This team is really, really good at taking out any of the ground types in the tier, which especially against some of the better opponents, and anybody bringing Landorus is going to be huge. And again, that 109 speed tier is exceptional. So then I took, I believe Miltank, yeah, was my tier 4. It's my only tier 4, but I wanted to make sure that I got, something that I wanted here. And Miltank is great and one of those classic underrated draft staples, but also one of those really fast, deceptive walls that can just do so many things. And you look at Miltank and it's got this unbelievably good move pool of just great options. It got body press this generation. It's got milk drink for recovery. It's got stealth rock. It can spread status. It has a garbage special attack, but base 80 attack allows it to do some damage, and that base 100 means that even uninvested, this thing is going to be outrunning things. And I just thought it's a ghost immunity. It's with thick fat. It's a fire and ice resistance, which this team really needed. It also has Sap Sipper to take on the grass types in the tier. Not that that's going to come into play too often, but that +1 attack off Sap Sipper, might actually prove really valuable against certain opponents. So I was getting down to the nitty-gritty in the draft, and I had my one more tier 2 selection, and I went with my old reliable Slowbro Galler. If anybody played in the low tier league last season against me, you'll know this was my MVP. I had 13 kills, 4 deaths. This thing had no business being in an underused league, but it's great that it's available to me in UU for this league. And obviously, Slowbro is slow. And Slowbro Galler has a weird mix where it gave up some defenses compared to regular Slowbro to get more attack. And its attacking move pool is all right. Physically, it's mediocre. I guess you can run some fun things, but this thing is mostly going to come in and be your regenerator pivot, take physical hits, get out, and threaten things with nasty plot or calm mind. I mean, it has some things that you can use on the physical side. Poison Jab is a mediocre stab, but it's got Earthquake. It can run Stored Power. It's got Liquidation for some coverage. There's I think there's some unexplored potential with Slowbro as a physical attacker, but mostly this thing's going to come in, sponge physical hits. It's a fail-safe against a lot of the fighting types, which are going to want to come against Crocodile, and in some matches I may be trying to use Togekiss in a different kind of defensive role. So Slowbro Galler, it was available late in the draft. I was like, why the hell not? Next, I'm looking at my team. Obviously, if you're looking at my team, there's no fire type, and there's almost no fire type moves. I basically got fire coverage, and so what did I do? I took Decidueye. I really wanted to use Decidueye. It gives me that stab poltergeist that is always so useful. It can be a physical wall breaker. It can be a special wall breaker. It can be a decently especially bulky pivot. It's a water resist. It's a mediocre ground resist. It's a fighting immunity. This team doesn't love fighting attacks, especially my top dogs. And I thought I wanted to give it a try, and it's something that can be really useful again, so many Pokemon in this team have, well, a number of them have pivoting moves, and that's what I wanted to have is something to keep momentum, and it can also even run defog. So Decidueye is something that can, you know, do a lot of damage, and long reach, great ability. Can't wait to try some shenanigans with that. And obviously, last pick, I had one more spot for a tier 5, and I'm looking through. Steel types were getting sniped. You know, Aggron, Mawile, and you know, I ended up. You know, I'm looking at my team, and there's no fire types on this team. And while I have absolutely no problem taking on grass types, I've got oodles of grass resists and grass coverage. You know, steals are still a problem. And while there's not a ton of great steals in the tier, in my opinion, you know, I thought let's get Magneton. So Magneton, that 120 special attack with a scarf, it can be really fast. It's got, you know, it's got good bulk with an Eviolite, I'll give it that. It's got that really strong Volt Switch. Steel attacks coming off of that special attack can really hurt things. It's an extra electric type if I'm not bringing Heliolisk. And in niche situations, I've got Magnet Pull. Normally I'm going to be bringing Analytic, I think, because it just does so much more damage. But Magnet Pull is going to be useful in deterring, say, if anybody's drafted Skarmory, if anybody's drafted Scizor. And at the very least, if somebody's drafting Scizor, I'm looking at, say, you know, Pokebaldi, whose team looks insane for the playoffs. You know, he's going to have to bring Brick Break or some other coverage move. So that just helped, you know, shore up my steel weakness a bit. Again, looking at this team, you know, there are, you know, there's a number of great immunities on the team, tons of immunities, a bunch of useful resistances. I think this team covers its weaknesses fairly well. It's going to be a lot of fun to use. Again, the lack of fire type is concerning, but you know, there wasn't really a fire type that I wanted to draft that I was in love with. So anyway, this is my team for the season. I don't plan on making any trades. I didn't make any Grace trades. I'm happy with this group. We're going to at least try it out and see how it goes. You know, I figured with the lack of real high-end steals that I could maybe get away with it. And although I promised at the start of the video I would do a P-Town Pests preview, I'm just going to give a very quick shout out to this guy who drafted an all bug type team, and he's in my tier. So a couple of things. One, you can see clearly me not drafting a fire type already a problem because he's got 2 4x weak bugs. You know, obviously the hazard war is going to be that, but you know, kudos to you and huge balls for picking a team full of bug types. And I'm really looking forward to our match. I'm pretty sure we're in the same division, and you know, just looking at it, you know, you can probably look at my team and guess 90% of what's coming. You know, including trying to find some creative ways to make Alakazam useful here, because every single one of his Pokemon is going to resist. So anyway, I don't know if I'm going to do all of the post comms for the Gen 8 UU. I'm definitely going to do it for super low tier, or at least I want to, time permitting, because I think it would be really fun, even if some of the videos are delayed. So anyway, we'll see you for our first match of the season, and hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks.